Good morning. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter, your consciousness transformation and ascension guide and originator of Trinity Energy Progression, bringing you this week's Living the Shift. I have to think about which thing I'm actually doing right now because there's a bunch. So today we're talking about the facade, and on over on Ascended World that I do at Sarah C. Gavagnoni on Monday mornings at this time. We've talked about manipulation. We've talked about the resolution, the healing of the divine masculine. We've talked about, manipulation of what seems to be subordinate positions, right? And we've talked about bottoming, which is the same kind of thing, right? Which is managing from the bottom, from what seems to be the bottom. So, it seems to be this like recurring theme that keeps on coming up, right? And so manipulation, and this isn't said with any judgment at all. It's simply observation because I had this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine. And we were at lunch, and we do lunch every 4 to 6 weeks, and it's always an epiphany for both of us, right? Because then when we start talking about, oh, well, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, even though like I'm in my day to day, I journal, I meditate, and all that kind of stuff, the things that are coming together right now are so big that they are challenging for us to see in their entirety because they are so big, and it's like we've taken off, biteable, chewable bites, right? And so when you start talking about, oh, so what's been going on the last, 6 weeks, this happened to be six because we had a reschedule. And I was like, wow, I don't know. And then we started talking, and then I was like, okay, this and this and this and this. And then we started talking about, oh, and she said, oh, well, that's just like, whatever, several months ago. And then I said, oh, look at the overarching thing. And then she started seeing it in her patterns and the stuff that's going on around her. And what kept on coming, what really is clear, or seems to be clear, when you do look at it from that top level, or the bigger levels, not the top level, but the bigger levels, is we have a lot of facades that are crumbling. We have a lot of lies that we've been telling ourselves. So it's funny because a lot of the topics that have been coming up lately have been having to do with lying to ourselves, lying to others, manipulating through illusions, right? Of, again, the bottoming of, oh, well, I'm so weak and I'm a victim, so you have to take care of me, or you have to save me, or you have to do this for me. And then, which pushes somebody to do something for you, right? Things like that. That's going on at this bigger and bigger and bigger level. And it's funny because what happened that caused me to really sort of look at this was I was talking about how, yeah, well, when I finally saw that and I realized, oh my gosh, of course, like we all do it. We all manipulate others in some way, shape, or form through, the way we say things, the way we act, when we guilt them, when we, guilt them, shame them, judge them, or whatever for not or for doing something. We persuade them into doing it. And I started seeing patterns of that, at this collective level, especially with the masculine and feminine. But then I was like, no, it's really just it's also an individual thing. So I said, I'm done. Okay, it's all authenticity, it's all honesty, it's all non-attachment. And I said that, and this is, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe. And I didn't realize until I was talking yesterday in this conversation that, oh my goodness, actually, that's why everything seems to have crumbled. Not really crumbled, but it was like contention came up. And it was interesting because I was like, okay, nope, no more of that. But here's the thing, that's how we interact with each other. It's like a dance. And when I started seeing that, when she and I were talking about this, we started seeing it like this, like a ballroom dance, right? So manipulation, lying, um, and how we back and forth it all the time, and it's a dance. And if one partner says, yeah, I'm done, the other partner's like, well, then how do I do this dance? Which then causes a huge, uprising. It's interesting. So like one of the things that I was talking about, we had a little bit of something come up because I have both my adult kids living at home still, post college. And my husband and I, excuse me, have had issues with our privacy in the house. It's like, okay, y'all are adults. We're not just mom and dad anymore. We have a life. And yet they kept on like dictating all this stuff. And then I finally got really angry and said no. And this was after I realized it was after I had said that, yeah, I'm done with that manipulating, right? So, and of course, things started coming up on people lying to me, on people trying to manipulate me. And they would get really irritated because I was not playing the game, essentially. And then I, had to turn around and be really, strong on a boundary of no, I'm just not going to play this because this is how it really is. This is the truth. This is how I understand it. This is how we're living it. And these are my rules in terms of my space. And this was literally in this case. And then you get this pushback. Well, so that happened with my husband. It's happened with multiple people, my kids. It's happened with, and then it's funny because when things come up and they just don't, what happens is it seems like it's out of nowhere, but it's really it just is in non-alignment, right? So when it's in non-alignment, which is what I've been saying is, have everything in alignment, for this, for consciousness, for remembrance, for love and peace, for blah, blah, blah. But if it's out of alignment, it's got to do something in frequency to shift so it all comes into alignment together. And in the process, it's going to cause a bit of balking because when you stop dancing on the dance floor with your ballroom dancing partner, they have nobody to dance with. And if you just walk off in the middle of the dance, it's like, well, wait. So we were talking about that, and my friend said, this is distressing. And she goes, I can feel it. It's distressing to even consider at the collective level because, well, okay, let's just look at the basics in terms of consciousness and our understanding. And our understanding is consciousness is like like we are part of the whole of divine consciousness, right? And separation duality has been created and creating an illusion of separation, and yet being the divine consciousness in pieces of separation. So that in itself is a lie. We lie to ourselves, right? We manipulate in creation in duality. We manipulate to create. And we've really mastered that in terms of in duality and separation. So here's the collective ego going, well, wait a second. We can't peel back too many layers now. We can't give up all of that. Because if we give up all of that, then it is going to just collapse the entire existence and then there will be no more creation. Can you feel that? When I say that, it's a little daunting. It's a little overwhelming when we connect into the ego, and I sort of get this tingly in my back. And I feel like it's not the idea of, I feel like it's not the idea of giving up the whole thing. I think it's being in the, and so I've talked about this, being in the matrix, but not of it, like being here, but not being like sucked in and lost in it, to say, okay, I accept the illusion for what it is. But if I give it my illusion, I'm going to stop playing in this playground. So I can accept it without judgment, and I can just choose to accept all the aspects of it or not. But it's a conscious thing versus an unconscious thing. It's a conscious choice of, am I going to allow this, or versus the unconscious choice of, oh, am I a victim to it and I can't do anything about it. Sarah and I were talking, we just finished up the course and the launch of the course of self-responsibility as part of the Adventures in Wonderland program. And we did the last element that we did the video together is about divinity. And it's about getting to accepting self-responsibility for God, for being God, right? Meaning that we own all of it. We've created the shadow, we've created the light, we've created duality, we've created ourselves, we've created everything around us. We've created every step, and what we have believed, convinced ourselves to believe is a misstep along the way. as part of the grand plan of the creation of the symphony that we created, right? If you go back to the word Om, right? That's what it's was like. The one sound created the universe. It's sort of like, well, that's all, whatever, one frequency, one whatever. So when we can take self-responsibility to say, I am the divine, embodied as a facet of the divine, as the infinite being that I am, the infinite consciousness that I am, and I have forgotten that by choice to play out what I'm choosing to play, right? And you could say, okay, and I can access more or less based on my choice. Well, so what Sarah and I were talking about is when we say that, when we say I've created, I am the creator, I am all of this, whether I'm a facet, I'm a fractal. When we say we can do that, then we know, we remember that we can change anything. We empower ourselves by saying, oh, well, I created this, I can change it. Well, that changes so much energy around everything versus saying, oh, well, I can create, oh, yeah, I created this and this, but not this. Like, that's not my creation. That was a mistake. There's no mistakes. We did create all of it. We created the darkness and the shadows, and we love them. We love them. I say as we get ready to launch our shadow course on October 4th, next Monday. So it's so important for us to get to that place to say, okay, well, if we're not done playing in these facades of illusion, because the ego has, in its creation, has fallen in love with itself, fallen in love with identity and separation, fallen in love with, the me and not me concept, then of course it's going to fight like crazy to prevent us from resolving it and completing it. So when we look at that at a collective level, it's very uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And then when we take it down to an individual level, that's what's going on in so many ways. So many people are discovering things that are lies. They are discovering things they've lied to themselves about. They are discovering that they can change the things that they've lied to themselves about. They're discovering that it might take a big life change or a big jump to do that. And they're also discovering that that can be easy if we choose for it to be. So, it's all how we choose to create it and how we choose to change it. But there's a lot of crumbling going on, and the crumbling really is the facades. And what I, like many of us say things like, well, what's falling away are things that don't serve you, like that. And that's true. And what we mean by that when we say that is when I'm holding myself at a certain vibration, and as I go along in remembrance, my vibration increases and expands. And it does encompass everything beneath it, but everything beneath it has to roll into everything above it when you're holding that vibration. So then it becomes non-distinct, and it sort of what we would consider maybe dissolving into the expanded consciousness. And that's not bad, right? But as we are holding, so what that manifests as is things that hold that lower vibration, that we have allowed ourselves deeper in separation and lying to ourselves and creating facades that don't adequately address the big picture of how we're moving forward collectively. It's coming up to the surface to just fall away. So we have a lot of bubbling going on. And Sarah and I talked about this on Monday on Ascended World. So if you haven't seen that one, go over and see it on the Ascended World page, where we talked about, actually, I think I have it posted here. Well, I have it posted here on the Living the Wish Shift page too. But we talked a lot about, the agitation of like liquid or water right before it turns into the gas state. So before it starts to bubble, right, to boil. It starts, the molecules, if you remember basic chemistry, the molecules really start to get quicker, more agitated. They bump against each other. They get frantic and frenzied. before that transformation. And what Sarah and I were talking about on Monday, which I'm continuing here in a way, this is like a very important facet of it, is the agitation is these facades that we pretend to have, these things that are not necessarily our truth anymore, and they might have been at a different point, and or we thought they were because we were lying to ourselves, because there's so many layers, and this is what we were talking about at lunch yesterday, my friend and I. It was like, at some point we were like peeling back so many layers, it's like, well, all you can see is what's there underneath. And then the ego says, well, what fun is that? That's no fun. That's no fun playing this game. So not sure if there are any comments, because I cannot see comments today, weirdly, but I could probably look up. It's unusually quiet in here. So, but anyhow, the whole thing that has to do with facades is like, it's okay. All right. It's okay to, it's time to stop. Oh, shh. Now I pull this up. So see if I could see maybe some stuff in here. That it's time for us to stop lying to ourselves, right? B, that it's okay for us to see ourselves not talking to ourselves, to allow to see ourselves lying to ourselves, and to not judge that, because it's been part of the game. And the game has been the illusion, and the illusion is technically a lie and a manipulation and everything within it. So that's the matrix, right? That's the idea of the matrix. And now it's like, well, what do we do? Right? And that's what the ego freaks out about. Can we exist without the facade? Can we exist without the matrix? Well, probably no. We probably don't. But we do, because we're always the divine consciousness. We're always infinite consciousness. But do we exist as we are? No. We start to change, right? And the funny thing is, the ego fights it tooth and nail, hates it, because as I understand it, the ego's, job has been identity and separation. So when you start to dissolve the identity back into the wholeness, the ego goes, but wait, no, wait, we have this problem we still have to solve. No, we have this problem we still have to solve. We love the drama, we love the problems, we love the pain, because it perpetuates our separation. It perpetuates the exploration of that identity and separation. So we lie to ourselves in so many layers of, well, this is what enlightenment is. This is what, this is what ascendance is. This is ascension is. This is what remembrance is. But then we have peppered inside of it all of these lies we have to ourselves, or these manipulations that are like, oh, and to do that I have to do this, to do that I have to do that. And as we do that, we're creating things that are perpetuating separation within the things that we claim are getting rid of it. So we're playing a head game with ourselves. And it's funny when you see it without judgment, because then it's like, oh, well, look at how smart and brilliant and amazing we are, right? And look at how just complex and crazy awesome in our magnificence. So the question then becomes not, can we exist without our facades, but what is it for us to do and be as this agitation for completion is coming to the surface? That's the big question. And that's very individual for every single one of us, because we all have a different part in this symphony. So it's not going to be the same. And I can't give you like one magic pill that's going to tell you this is what you're supposed to be doing, or this is what you're supposed to be, this is what you're to be, because that's not for me to translate for you. It's for you to allow and sit in for yourself. I mean, I am hit upside the head and in the face over and over and over again. And it just seems to be ramping up on the things that I have been uncomfortable looking at within myself, within my reality. And I know I do it consciously. So when you do it consciously, it's like, okay, I am already committed to seeing this every day. I'm committed to seeing this in every moment in my life, and I'm still having things that come up where I'm lying to myself. And it's not like a big lie. It's like these little things, right? Like I had a ping about something and I ignored it because I knew the ping would take me down a path that was uncomfortable to the ego. So I ignored it until it was blown up in my face. And as I found, I've gone along, and I think we're doing this collectively because I know a lot of people calling me right now with big, huge explosions going on in their lives out of nowhere sometimes, or what they seem to have is nowhere. It's like, well, but have you looked at this? Have you just looked at letting that go versus perpetuating that facade, right? And a lot, and pretty much every time it was like, well, I've known this, or I've gotten this kind of ping, and I really got this understanding, or I really had this inclination, and yet I still, the ego was just so much more forceful and was like, no, we have to do this, we have to fix this, we have to control this. And then we sit there and go, well, how do I let go? How do I let go of this? Because I'm supposed to care, I'm supposed to, which is all ego. I'm supposed to be, I talked last week about, the belief of non-compassion when we allow people to have their journeys and honor ours and everyone's around us, because then we don't interfere unless we're so guided from higher, expanded guidance. And so now it's really looking at that within ourselves and saying, okay, so if I am, because we tell ourselves, oh no, it's for the bigger, it's for the better good, it's for the higher good, right? We always say that. Well, what's for the highest good? Highest good is an egoic term because anything in hierarchy and separation is ego. So when we say, okay, so what is for the completion? What if we change the words to what is for the completion, my fulfillment as my embodiment? What is that? What does that look like? What does that feel like? How do I do it? What if we did that? It changes the way we feel that. It changes the way we experience it. And then it takes us out of this like managing our realities over and over, which is funny because I just laugh going, the more I get into this, the more I look at this and the more closely I look at it, the more time gets so wiggly and wobbly for me. What was it? Wibbly wobbly in the Doctor Who stuff. Wibbly wobbly. It's because now it's just like, well, do I need time as the facade to, measure the completion of anything I've done while I'm in the body? There's another one. Like, how many questions we can ask ourselves when we start saying, okay, my first step, and this is what I'm going to suggest, is your first step is really just setting yourself to be open to that clarity, to be able to see within yourself the facades that are important to let go of right now, and to change. And the more uncomfortable it feels, the more you want to avoid something, the more important it probably is. That's the icky part to the ego, right? Is like, oh, but that means I got to let go of this. And that means a lot of stuff having to do with like what Sarah and I were talking about on Monday, I think, but sorry, because Sarah and I have talked several times since, so I'm not sure if it was on the air or off the air, about like our relationships and about our, where we are in life and our jobs and our lives. And we start down a path and then the ego goes, oh, well, this is the path and this is the projection and this is what we're supposed to do on this path. So I'm not going to reassess this path ever again. So your guidance might have been true in the beginning of this is the path to take, but the guidance might have been taking that path for like 2 years, 2 months, 2 weeks, and then the ego's perpetuating it for 2 decades. And it's not serving you anymore. It doesn't seem to be giving you the response or the results or getting you to what you're envisioning or feeling pulled to. So then it's for us to step back again and say, okay, so in non-attachment, what is it for me to be doing or being right now? And that's truly letting go of all these facades of expectation, of roles, of what it's supposed to look like to be a mother, a spouse, a professional in a certain field. We get into doing this work in spiritual consciousness, and we say, oh no, this is my calling, right? But is it always our calling, or is it supposed to be our calling for 5 minutes, 5 days, five years, right? And then maybe it's time to incorporate that into something else. And I've worked with a lot of people in the past couple of years that were really pulled to do this, and then eventually were pulled to go and change something else, and then they felt guilty, like they were abandoning their post. And I'm like, no, if your guidance is to do this or you're being pulled, or things are just showing up in your face to do this instead, then maybe that's the direction you're to take. And it doesn't make it more or less honorable whether you are doing spiritual work and then you're called to go be a garbage collector. It doesn't matter. It just is all about what it is that's there for you to be or to do in this symphony of completion. Because sometimes it's just you need to be someplace for a period of time to hold a certain vibration. And that is what we're not used to doing, because we think that it's supposed to be, oh, so flowery, so understood. I know there have been plenty of times I've been called to just literally sit someplace and hold a certain space. And I don't know anybody there. I mean, I literally have been just guided to go and sit down and be there. And then I'll be like, okay, you're done. That's it. And then I get up and go. That is sort of where it is for us to go now, right? Is my understanding. And to do that is really letting go of these facades. And it sounds so easy, and yet in practice we are so ingrained in the facades, because that's all of this, the whole matrix. It's the whole thing. It's all a facade. We're always the divine consciousness. We're always whole. We're always all one. This is all just the illusion that we've created. So the question is, what do I do with it? In that remembrance, what is there for me to do and what is there for me to be? So that's what there is to look at this week in your, and how do I do it? How do I do it and how do I be it? Yeah, so that's what's to look at this week in your reality, and say, okay, so if something feels like I'm banging my head up against the wall, so A, either I've not cleared something out that'll allow that to flow forward, or B, I'm circling around because I'm still trying to do the same thing and expect different results, or C, it might be time to just go in a different direction altogether. And this isn't across the board. I mean, so many different things. Even, where you go out to eat tonight, or how, like what clothes you wear today. I mean, if we start to commit down to every little thing, to allowing those questions, allowing that release, allowing ourselves to just be, be who or what we are in that moment, kind of takes away so much energy of forced control and creation. And maybe that's what is for us to explore next, right? How it flows together when we allow it to really flow. I see a big, like, psychedelic river of colors and stuff coming together. So look at that this week, and sit in that with your meditation and be very conscious of it, and look at that in your life. And we'll see what comes up next week. So this is Angela Coulter signing off with this week's Living the Shift. Have a great one. Bye.